Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, cha, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, festive, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, wherever you find your favorite shows. Today we're traveling to the Writer's Loft in Hudson, Massachusetts to celebrate their holiday book festival. We have a chance to speak to Helen Kampion, Howard Woolke, Kelly Carey, Ellen Cohen, Jaya Mehta, Janet Costa Bates, Susan Lubna, Nancy Tupper-Ling, Andrew Hackett, Pam Vaughn, and Dana Laquadera. First up, Janet Costa Bates. So I'm here at the Writer's Loft in Hudson, Massachusetts, and standing next to me is Janet Costa Bates. And I just found out that I had asked her on the show many years ago, and she said no. She didn't say it like that. There's some family issues. How are things now with your family?
Things are fine. There are different issues, and they're called grandchildren, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
So tell us what book that you're here celebrating.
Well, I have 3 books with me today. Time for Bed Old House is one. It's a picture book in which Isaac does not want to go to sleep during a sleepover, and Grampy says, stay awake. But they put the house to bed. And then there's the Rika Baptista series, where Rika and her best friend Lainey come up with a lot of schemes and have a lot of fun.
Awesome. I love that. The idea of kids not wanting to go to bed. That's such a struggle.
Yeah.
And I think I understand you have to have rules and boundaries and things like that, but also it's like if you just let the kids stay up for like that, they're going to be asleep in 15-20 minutes anyways.
Exactly. Well, the first time I read it to my grandson, who was then about 5 years old, he was sleeping over and he was bouncing off the walls. But we read the book, and halfway through he yawned, and I thought, yes, it works.
Yes, now that he wasn't bored by the book.
No.
Oh, good.
No.
Good. Okay.
It's just
it's calming
hopefully
and soothing,
making you sleepy.
Yes.
There's a few yawns in the book. That's intentional.
So how did you come to your children's author journey?
I started writing probably in the 2nd grade. I wrote poems. I have a shopping bag full of poems that never saw the light of day. They still have it. They're still in the shopping bag. I put plastic over it so they wouldn't get dusty, but I literally have a shopping bag full of poems. And then when my kids were born, I started reading picture books to them when they were infants, tiny infants in my arms. I started reading picture books, and I went, this is what I want to do.
Awesome.
So a long journey, a slow journey, but got there.
I think some of the best things in life are things that take a lot of time to percolate, kind of like soup, you know?
There you go. My career is soup. I think you described it quite accurately. It's soup. It's a stew, a slow cooking stew.
Well, one of my favorite things in the world, my beautiful wife's mother is from Puerto Rico, and she makes asopal de pollo. It's chicken stew, and it's delicious. And if she made enough for a month, I would eat it every day for a month, because all those flavors that come together, and it's like, there's a little bit of that, but oh my, together it's like,
and it takes time.
It takes time. And what's the most wonderful thing you experienced, or one of the most wonderful things you experienced on your journey as a children's author?
Oh, there's a lot of things, but I'll tell you a little story.
Okay.
For Time for Bed Old House, there's nothing in there that indicates the character's color at all. But I did ask. I asked if they could be African American before I signed the contract. I wanted a yes, and Candlewick said yes. And I was at an author fest one day, a book fair, and there was a mother who I'm assuming her 2 young sons were adopted. She was white, one of her sons was white, one of her sons was black. And she said, and she came up to me after I did a story time with Time for Bed Old House, and she came up to me and she said, you know, we have an easy time finding books that look like my white son, but not my black son. And she said when he saw the book, and the child in the book has dreadlocks and everything, A.G. Ford, wonderful illustrator, she said when her son saw the book, and she imitated her son saying this, she said he looked at it and said, I'm in that book. I'm in that book. And he was very excited, and that makes me happy.
Yeah.
That makes me very happy.
I'm sure. You know, as I've been doing reading with your kids, I understand how important it would be to be represented, to see yourself represented in the pages of a book. But one of the things that I really celebrate is the fact that it gives my kids, who a lot of people think are biracial because my wife's Puerto Rican, but not really.
Yeah.
But it gives my kids a chance to look into a window and see a different culture. But I belong to a group called Clowns Without Borders, and we travel around to refugee camps and disaster areas. And I had the executive director, Naomi Schofer, on the show, and we were talking, and she was talking about her infant son really loves this book about a clown because he sees his family in the book. And I immediately thought back, my kids, one of their favorite books was The Clown of God by Tommy DePaulo. And it was the first time I made the connection, like, my kids were seeing themselves represented in the pages of the book. And it's like, that's really, really powerful.
And representation happens in a lot of ways, but it validates the kid.
Right.
You know, my experience is like the experience of the people in this book, or whoever's in that book, and it's validating.
How is the kidlit world doing in terms of catching up? I know there's a long way to go, but how much better are things now in terms of representation, not only black kids and Puerto Rican kids, but all kids? You know, are we a little bit closer to being there, or are we still a long way away?
I think we're much closer, but there are also more obstacles in the way, like in terms of book banning, etc. So I think the publishing world is getting much, much better, but we're also facing these other obstacles coming up, so we just got to keep fighting the good fight.
Awesome, yeah. I'm going to ask you a question, but before I do, can you tell us where we can go to find out more about your books?
Well, one, my website,
Yep.
janetcostabates.com, and if people are interested in the book, anywhere, you know, order through your favorite indie or anywhere you buy books.
Good. I want to ask you that question before I ask this question, because I don't know what answer I'm going to get. So, will you come back on Reading with Your Kids and do like a full interview?
This time I will.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you for having me.
I'm here at the Writers Loft in Hudson, Massachusetts. What a great book event we have. And I'm standing next to Helen Kampion, and she's going to tell us about her book, Rolling On Down the Line. Hey, Helen, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. What a nice event this is.
It's perfect. Wonderful. It's so festive. Lots of people coming. It's great. Great time.
Well, speaking of festive, you have quite a festive setup here. You have a table covering with looks like the red, white, and blue. You have a straw hat on with LBJ in the USA. So tell me all about the hat and the book.
Okay, well, the book, as we said, it's called Rolling On Down the Line, Lady Bird Johnson's 1964 whistle-stop tour for civil rights. And basically, President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act and could not go down to the South and campaign because of death threats. Lady Bird believed very much in the Civil Rights Act, so took it upon herself to make a tour. She went to 8 southern states in 4 days and made about 12 speeches a day.
I was alive in 1964. I was pretty young, so I wasn't aware of everything, but I was aware of, of the assassination of JFK and aware of the Civil Rights Act. I had no idea that Lady Bird had the courage to take this trip.
She absolutely did. The Secret Service did not want her to go. Neither did her husband want her to go. There were death threats against her. There were rumors of snipers. There was a bomb threat in Tallahassee, Florida, but she still went through the entire trip to do it because she believed so much in the Civil Rights Act, and she wanted to tell the people of the South, this act is good for the entire country. It's not against you, but it's going to bring prosperity to the country.
Yeah. How prescient she was.
Absolutely. Most people know Lady Bird for her wildflowers and her beautification of America highways, but she says this is the most important moment in her political life, making this trip down the South.
So I recently had a guest on the show talking about the fact that in the early 60s, women couldn't even get a checking account without their husband's permission. How in the world did Lady Bird stand up to the president and the Secret Service and say, yo, guys, I'm going?
Very, very strong woman, and she was committed. She believed this. She grew up with segregation. She had African-American playmates that could play with her in her front yard, but not her backyard, not the schoolyard. She just believed in it. It wasn't right. She said it wasn't right, and she wanted to do something about it, and she had a chance to do it. She was very strong, and she actually was the first lady to ever campaign without her husband.
Wow. Incredible. And what inspired you to write this story as a children's book?
Well, actually, I have a co-author, and she's what I affectionately call a history hoarder. My co-author, Renee, loves history, and she came up with this idea, and we had wanted to write a book together. When she came up with this, and I started reading about Lady Bird's Whistle Stop Tour, which I'd never heard of, I read about it, and I realized what a gutsy, brave woman she was, and I said, well, who doesn't want to write a book about a woman like that? Yeah. So I was hooked, and the rest is history.
And what a great role model for our kids today.
Absolutely. I think in March of every year, it's Women's History Month, and I think this would be a really good subject matter for some students to write about.
And I think it would be a good subject matter for us to talk about more on a full episode of Reading with Your Kids.
I would love it. I would love it. See you guys then.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
I'm back at the Writer's Loft, and I am with Howard Woolke. He is the author of middle grade novels. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Hi, everybody. I'm Howard Woolke, author of the Cryptid Academy series, a series about a school of mythical and mythological creatures, starring a golem.
A golem. Tell me about a golem.
So, golem is a creature from Jewish mythology who is a large creature made out of clay with the Hebrew word for truth on its forehead. In my stories, he's a nice, friendly creature who can't lie at all. He doesn't know how to lie, and he calls people out when they lie and makes for a challenging situation at a school.
I imagine it would be. Now, are we going to meet other cryptids in this story?
Absolutely. So his best friend is a djinn and two fairy twins. There are nagas, there are imps, there are creatures from all over the world, Kirans and sphinxes and Ouroboroses. All over the world, creatures are in this school.
Now, my favorite cryptid is the chupacabra. Do we have the chupacabra?
There's no chupacabra in this book as of right now. No, unfortunately not.
It's a series, right?
Yes.
So there's a possibility.
Yeah.
All right. How did you get interested in writing this series?
So the story of the golem is an old one that I've heard for a long time, and I've always been intrigued by the story. And so I just had the idea of a golem at a school, and it went from there.
Awesome. And what's your writing process? I'm really fascinated, especially with people who are writing fantasy, where there's a different set of physics than the ones that we're living with. How do you keep all of that straight? Do you have like a big wall with Post-it notes on it, or a map, or?
I don't. I have some notes that I take down, and then I can look back at my notes, but it's still kind of set in our world, so it's not a completely new world, just a secret school within our world. And so same physics, same just all the different characters. And I've studied religion. I was a comparative religion major in college, so I have learned about a lot of these faith traditions and the various creatures and mythical creatures, and I love it. So it's in my head.
Now, I've also, but not on the level that you did, I've studied world religions, and I find it fascinating. And the thing I find fascinating, we hear this word, celebrate diversity, all the time, and I agree with that. But one of the things that I really love is discovering the commonalities that we have. What's, in your study of these world religions, what's the thing that all of those religions kind of hold dear?
How we treat each other, and respect for each other, and caring for each other. That's the big driving factor always.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's one of the things that I brought my kids up on is, at the bottom line, forget about the rules. The bottom line, my God, your God, his God, her God, wants us to care for each other, love each other, and treat each other with respect.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about, respect and care, and that's what matters most, so we can live together.
Hey, tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Cryptid Academy.
Yeah, so my website's howardwoolke.com, HOWARDWOLKE.com. All the information's there, including a website for the school is there as well. So check it out.
You got to do that WOLK again. It sounds like a radio.
Sorry, yeah.
Sound like radio.
So it's HOWARDWOLKE.com.
I just love it. I just love the voice. I didn't really need you to do it over again. I have had the best time chatting with Ellen Cohen. She is one of the authors here at the Writers' Loft in Hudson, Massachusetts. Hey, Ellen, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much.
We've had such a nice time chatting. You were telling me about your husband who volunteers to read with kids in one of the public schools.
Yeah, he's been doing that for several years, and at the end of the year, one of the kids sent him a thank you note that said, "You should be a professional reader."
I love that. I love it. And has he had a chance to read your book to the kids?
He hasn't had a chance to read my book to the kids. My book is geared to kids a little bit older than the second grader that he works with. Okay. But he's been extremely helpful editing my book and being a first reader for me. Awesome. So he's sort of my behind-the-scenes partner in getting the book to publication.
That's so important to have that person behind you.
It absolutely is, and he catch little word-finding difficulties or grammar mistakes and syntax, so it's really, he's been a big help.
That's awesome. And tell us the name of your book and tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So my book is called Searching for Lucky Number 3002, A Ben in Blue Mystery. So I grew up reading mysteries, so of course I had to write one. Uh-huh. And it's a middle grade book that is about a young boy who has a family project to do for school, having to do sort of a family tree. He lives with a single mom, but doesn't know anything about his biological father. And his mom has not been really coming forward with giving him information. So he and his best friend, who's a girl, and the rescue dog named Blue that he eventually gets, a basset hound, have to solve the mystery about who his dad is.
Wow. Boy, talk about rich conversations that can come from reading that book together or co-reading that book.
Right, and it also has a big spoiler alert, so I'm not sure whether you want me to give the spoiler alert or not.
Well, you know something? I have a feeling that if a parent hears the spoiler and gets excited about it, there's a good chance they're going to go out and get the book or get 2 copies of the book so they can co-read the book together with their kids.
Okay. So the spoiler alert is that it turns out, after doing a lot of digging and searching around, that the boy finds out that he was donor conceived, that his biological father was a sperm donor.
So even more conversations.
Right. And the book was inspired by my son's best friend growing up, who was a donor-conceived kid. And one day in school, the teacher asked the kids to tell a little bit about themselves or give a talk. And he told the story of his origin that he knew. And a girl stood up and said, that's really weird. Kids shouldn't be born that way. And he came back with a really quick answer, and he said, if this way of being born didn't exist, I wouldn't exist. And I thought that was such a smart line, I put it in my book.
Yeah, I love that. I wonder what the teacher's reaction was when she heard that him sharing that story.
Well, I think the teacher was very proud of him for standing up and doing that. And my purpose in writing the book, my intent, is that kids need to see themselves in stories. And families are created in all kinds of different ways. And I wanted children to be able to see the way that their family came to be or other families came to be, and be proud of who they are and how their family was created.
Yeah, that's a beautiful intent. Now, the book is out here. Is this going to become a series?
It is going to become a series. So the book just came out this past October, and shortly after the book was published, my publisher gave me a contract for the sequel. So the sequel will be out next fall. Same characters, but different story, but also showcasing family diversity.
Wonderful. Is there a website where we can go to find out more about you and the book?
Sure. So the book is published by Red Chair Press, and they have their own website. And my author website is ellenmelissacohen.com.
Awesome.
And I'm also on Instagram.
Awesome. Ellen, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Well, thank you so much for hearing about my story. I appreciate it.
We're here with Jaya Mayer at the Writers Loft. Hey, Jaya, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. You have a beautiful book. Your table has some ribbons on it, and your book, Nisha's Just Right Christmas Tree. Can you tell me about this book?
Sure. This is based on a story from my childhood in Brooklyn Heights, where my father and I started out to get a tree from the street corner. And my father wanted a little tree so we could get it up to the apartment on the 4th floor, and I wanted a big tree, as big as tall as a camel, as wide as an elephant. And we ended up happily. You'll have to read the book to find out.
Tell me, is this a debut book for you?
I'm sorry?
Is this your debut book?
Yes, it is. And I wrote it with my co-author, and it is not her debut book. She's written a number of middle grade and picture books. Her name is Susan Lynn Meyer.
Awesome. And what inspired you to share this story as a picture book?
Well, because it's about me as a little girl. My writing partner, who's written picture books, thought that it would make a good picture book. It is also implicitly about biracial, bicultural families, which is what my family was. So that was important to me to get on the page.
Yeah. I love that. We love that books can be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And, of course, it's great for kids from blended families, mixed families, to see themselves. But I think it's just important for other kids to be able to look in and take a look at different families.
Yeah, I so much agree. I think that it just makes the world larger and richer for those looking in the window. For those looking in the mirror, I can say, as a kid, I had nothing, no books, no heroines, no protagonists that seemed like me or my family, so I identified with white kids, and I had to write it for myself. Awesome. With Susan.
So the debut book is out. Do you have the children's writing bug? Are there going to be more books from you?
Well, Susan and I have a sequel to this. It doesn't have a home yet. We're Beaming Books has treated us so well. We'd love it if it what came out with Beaming Books again. But Nisha goes to India for the first time and goes to a family wedding. And there's a game, Little Sisters of the Bride, meaning cousins and actual sisters, hide the bridegroom's shoes, and he has to give them money to get them back. Nisha, as the youngest one, is given this job, and she hides the shoes, but then she can't remember where she put them. But it's also about being mixed, meeting your big family, being unsure if you fit in, things like that.
Wonderful. And I hear weddings in India can go on for like a month.
Well, not quite that long. I mean, maybe the Ambanis and the super, super rich celebrities, but they do go on for a good 4 days or a week, yes.
Okay. Yeah, we had one when we first launched this show back in 2017. We had a young Indian woman on, and she wrote her debut children's book. She was lovely, and we kept in touch, and she just got married, and she's been posting what looked like the official wedding pictures like every day for the last 2 weeks, and she's in a different outfit every time.
Oh my goodness, 2 weeks. Well, I have not been at that kind of wedding, but good for her. But
awesome.
Yeah, they are. There's a comic, an Indian comic, I can't remember her name, but she did a thing on white people visiting an Indian wedding for the first time, and the first few hours, oh, it's so beautiful, the smells, the sounds, the beautiful saris, and then like 10 hours later, when is this going to be over?
Well, Nisha, thank you very much for telling us all about Nisha's Just Right Christmas tree.
Thank you for coming and talking to me.
We're here at the Writer's Loft, and Susan Lubner is here. Hey, Susan, how are you?
Hi, Jed. How are you? I'm great.
I'm delighted to be here. This is such a fun event.
It certainly is. It's great to be around so many authors and illustrators and books, of course.
Books, yes. Physical books that you can touch and feel and read and smell.
Absolutely. Those are the best kind.
Yeah. So tell me, what book are you celebrating today?
So I am celebrating the release of the second book in my series, the Drag and Rex series, which is a very Frog and Toad-ish feel early chapter book. Sort of bridges the gap between kids that are just finishing up maybe with a picture book, but not quite ready for chapter books. And it's a story about a drag, and a T-Rex, Rex, and they are the best of friends with very different personalities. And book 1 came out last November, Forever Friends, and book 2 is out now, which is called Sweet and Silly.
That's really, one of the things that I've learned so much doing this Reading with Your Kids podcast over the past 7 years. And one of the things that I just learned is that the writing and the vocabulary in picture books is more complicated than a lot of chapter books intentionally.
Yes, sometimes that's true because oftentimes parents are still reading picture books to their children so that the writing can be a little bit more complicated because it's not the child that's actually doing the reading. And of course in these early chapter books it is when children are picking up the books on their own, and so the language tends to be a little shorter and simpler. The word choices is something that's considered when you write a book like Dragon Rex. And both of these books, though, are still highly illustrated, so they can actually be read to the child. They're highly illustrated by Blythe Russo, fantastic illustrations. So the book really is the perfect bridge, something that a parent whose children are still enjoying picture books can still read to their children, and something that a child can pick up on their own for the first time.
Yeah, I think this sounds like the perfect book. We talk about reading with your kids. This is a perfect book for our kids to read to us.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. I love that. Absolutely.
And it's so important, and this is something, when my daughter was in second grade and she started reading independently, I was really bummed out because I'm like, I love, she's the youngest, and now I can't read. And her teacher came up to me and said, keep reading with her. I said, really? Yes, keep reading. And we did, and we still share book ideas now.
I think that's fantastic. I love what you just said, to suggest to your child to read it to you.
Yes.
If they have the confidence now that they're stepping into independent reading, I think it's a wonderful way to continue to read together, and then have the child read to the parent.
And this seems like such an important age because, again, something I learned doing the show is kids in our education system here in the States, kids learn to read from kindergarten to second grade, and then in third grade they read to learn. So if they're not reading on level at third grade, they're at a real disadvantage.
Yeah, I do think that it's really important, this step. And these books also happen to be designed so that there are 3 stories in each book, and each story has 3 chapters that stand alone, so that when children are picking up these kinds of books, or this one in particular for the first time, if they feel a little intimidated or a little overwhelmed because they're just starting to read on their own, they can get a sense of completion and satisfaction by just reading 1 or 2 of the chapters, putting in a bookmark and putting it down, because they do stand alone as sort of complete smaller stories within the bigger story of the book.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is there a website we can go to learn more about Dragon Rex?
Sure, you can go to my website. There's more information at SusanLubner.com. I'll spell it for everybody. Sure, it's L-U-B as in boy, N-E-R. And that's... I appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Well, thank you for having me.
You know, you never know who you're going to meet at a book event, and I'm excited to meet one of our past guests, Nancy Tupper-Ling. Hey, Nancy, how are you?
It's so nice to meet you in person at last.
I know. This has been such a weird experience. You know, I've been doing this now for 7 years, 2,100 episodes. I've met so many authors, become friends with so many authors, and have only actually met maybe a half dozen in real life.
I'm glad I'm one of them.
Yeah,
this is very cool. This is my day.
I'm glad too.
With Jen.
Well, you're here. You have. I've met a lot of debut authors here, which is really exciting. Mm-hmm. The Writers Loft is, I guess, it's a great incubator for new authors.
Definitely. Yeah. Yes. I mean, great classes, great connections, networking with other editors. Yeah. Yes. So I would highly recommend.
Yeah. But you're a veteran. You're a veteran children's book author. You have, what, five or six books here?
Number 13.
Excuse me, I am sorry. Number 13. That is, I hope it's Lucky 13.
I hope it's Lucky 13, too.
Tell us about Lucky 13.
All right. It's called Hearts in My Pocket. It's a story about a young girl, Layla, who's dealing with her family's divorce and going between 2 homes. And trying to feel like the love is still there for both of her parents. So I won't give it away, but, you know, it's hearts in my pocket. They help.
You know, that is a topic that so many families are dealing with. Not only the families, the kids in the family that's breaking apart, but also their cousins. The kids in their class, the kids in their ballet class, the kids in their team. I think this book, it sounds like it would be a perfect book for all kids to read, so they can have empathy for their friends.
I couldn't agree more. And also, I think, like, when I was doing more research about what divorce, does in terms of grief and loss, but also there's reconciliation. So I think that's part of it too. But definitely this child goes through some of the stages of grief when they're missing what they had. So I think that's how a lot of children can relate to that. Everyone's dealing with change and different loss.
And that sense of caring and having empathy and understanding for what others are dealing with and missing, I think is such a super important topic to share with our kids.
So true. And I feel like there's, a lot of good books out there already, too. So I hope this becomes part of even just a resource for librarians and teachers to know that this is a book they can turn to in order to, evoke that empathy in friends. And,
One of the things that I noticed when I first started doing the podcast is a lot of people would come to me and say, well, I wrote this book because I was looking for a book on this, and there just wasn't one out there. I would hate for an author to have an idea for a book that is about a certain subject and they say, well, there's already 4 or 5 books out there. Mm-hmm. No one needs my book.
Mm-hmm. That's a problem, isn't it? But I also think there's always, there were 2 books that came out about Winnie the Pooh at the same time, and there's a space for both of them. This actually started as a poem that I wrote for one of my other anthologies, For Every Little Thing. It was a poem called Hearts in My Pocket. It just was dealing with the same subject, but I thought, I wonder if this could become a story. So that's actually how it started. Then I ended up interviewing a lot of my friends and their children who have had that experience, since I haven't had that myself, and just really getting at those different emotions that you go through with any loss. So yeah, hopefully there's still room for it on a shelf.
No, absolutely, because like you said, different books will touch different kids in different ways.
Yeah.
We're not experiencing these things in the same way.
Yes, definitely. And I'm a librarian, as you know, so there's lots of room for
Absolutely.
good stuff. But I really appreciate you stopping by.
Well, I am so happy. Remind everybody of your website, please.
Oh, thank you. It's my full name, so it's Nancy Tupper Ling, LING.com.
And I also know you also spend a good amount of time in one of my favorite bookstores.
I do. I work at the Blue Bunny Books in Dedham with Peter Reynolds, so please stop in there and say hello.
Awesome. We will. Well, thanks very much for being on.
Thanks, Jed. Yeah. Have a good day.
That was our friend Nancy Tupper Ling introducing our guest, Andrew Hackett. Hey, Andrew, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Wonderful. Great to meet you in the real world.
Yes, likewise.
Yeah. Andrew was on Reading with Your Kids when his first book dropped, and he was waiting for book 2 and book 3 to drop.
Yeah, absolutely. So now Curly Locks and the Three Hairs and Hope in the Sea have both released.
And I remember one of the things we talked about is the fact that you were that unique individual who had 3 books come out in like 2 weeks or something crazy like that.
Yes, within 2 months, all 3 books released, and it was a whirlwind of trying to do them justice and get the word out for all 3.
Now, I'm curious because we work with a lot of publicists, and of course they're very, very nice to me because they want to get their authors on. But I'm sure there might have been some conflicts, like Andrew, I need you to do this thing, and then the other publicist say, no, we need you over here. And was that a challenge?
It wasn't too bad. They were all appreciative of any marketing I was willing to do.
Okay.
And so luckily with the 3 of them, I was able to, any school visit I went to or bookstore, I was able to share all 3 books at once, so kind of triple dipping.
And you're really lucky because one of the things I've heard about the author biz is authors are often told, don't do really big marketing things until you have 2 or 3 books out there. And so for a lot of authors, that means like 4 or 5 years, and you got lucky. You just came out of the gate with 3.
Yeah, I was able to jump right in and have been fortunate to be supported to go to conferences like ALA and NCTE and be able to present both as a teacher and as an author and help spread the word about all 3 books.
Yeah. Now, I think one of the things we talked about was your kids, the kids that you teach, they were pretty impressed to have an author teacher.
Yeah, I think it lends some authenticity, and when I recommend writing strategies, I can do it either for my own books, or they know I'm living this life and doing these strategies I'm asking them to do. So a little bit more buy-in from them because they've seen the end product.
Okay. And you're not teaching high school kids who are going to come back with you go, no, this is my authentic self. This is my voice. And
yeah. No, these are second graders.
Okay. So authentic voice is wonderful, but not in second grade.
Yeah, I mean, they're authentic voices talking about their dog, usually.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And is book 4, 5, and 6 in the works right now?
So book 4 was just announced 2 days ago.
Congratulations.
So yes, I have a 4th book called In This Classroom. It is my love letter to a new group of kids and my first time blending my teacher life with my author life. And it'll be coming out spring 2026 with Red Comet Press, and Arthur Lynn is illustrating.
Awesome. It's still hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that it can take 2, 3, 4 years for a picture book from the time it's bought to actually get on the shelves.
Yeah, it still blows my mind, and I've been through this process a few times now. For this new one, feels like it's been sped up a little bit, but I think we all just accept this is what publishing is, and we try and work on the next best thing while we are there waiting.
Yeah, awesome. What's in this crazy whirlwind year or two that you've experienced? What's been the most wonderful thing that has happened?
I don't know if I can choose one. The number one would be just being able to share with kids.
Okay.
Seeing their faces react to the read aloud, seeing their interaction, their association with the characters. And then the second one is the community I've built with authors. Having this relationship and this network of people who are all trying to do the same thing, and we understand the struggle equally.
Yeah.
And there's no sense of competition. It's just supportive and wanting everyone to have the most success possible.
Yeah. I've said many times that's one of the reasons Reading with Your Kids survived through those first couple of years when it was really hard to kind of get off the ground and get guests and whatnot. It was just the people who came on were super supportive of each other. I would have one author on, and she would tell 10, and they would all reach out, and very soon I had no problem bringing guests on the show.
Yep, I'm not surprised at all. I don't think I've ever been in an industry quite like it where the people support each other 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're talking about reading aloud to kids. Have you learned how to get that thing? I was always amazed at librarians where they can hold the book and read the book. It's like upside down. It's like, do they have that? They look like they're reading, but I don't see how they can see the words from that angle.
Luckily, my background as a teacher prepared me for that.
Okay.
So, yes, I'm very good with the one-handed book hold.
Okay.
And the other thing I realized as my author visits continued was, you read it enough times, you almost do have it memorized. It becomes pretty ingrained.
Okay. I guess if you miss a mistake, one of those second graders is going to point it out to you, though, right?
They always will.
There you go.
They don't let anything slide.
Andrew, tell us your website where we can go find out more.
Yeah, absolutely. So andrewhackett.com is where you can find all my books, a little bit more information about me, and also I do an author interview series blog called The Backstory, where there's lots of previous entries where we can learn more about my author friends and their books.
Awesome. It's a competition for reading with your kids, huh?
No,
there's no competition.
There's none.
Andrew, thanks for being back on Reading with Your Kids.
Of course, thank you so much.
Right here, my name tag, but you never look down.
So she doesn't realize that I don't edit anything, and we've already started the interview, and this is Pam Vaughn talking smack about me here at the Writer's Loft in Hudson, Massachusetts. Hey, Pam, how are you?
Hey, Jed/Jay, because I do know your name, and I do talk smack a lot to a lot of people.
Great,
it's just
great.
my way.
And it makes sense because you wrote a book that Missy wants a mammoth.
Yes.
Am I correct in thinking that this is your debut children's picture book?
Yes, it sure is. Yep, she wants a mammoth and thinks it's a really good idea, and her brother, not so much.
True story. So when I started my corporation 30-something years ago with my beautiful wife, we called it Jedley Circus Productions, and we actually thought instead of me doing individual solo magic shows that we'd start a circus company. And we had a trade journal come to our house every week where they would advertise, you can buy an elephant, you can buy a tiger. And we actually looked into it and we found out that feeding an elephant is like really expensive. So we nixed that idea.
The mammoth eats like 450 pounds per day at least.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So where did the inspiration for Missy Wants a Mammoth come from?
I was just thinking about two opposite things. And then those turned into a girl who wanting something that she couldn't have. And how was she going to get it? And was she going to get it?
Yeah. Lots of people want things that they can't have.
That's for sure. Yes, definitely.
And what's it been like becoming a children's author? I heard that you were very supportive of other authors for many years. This is your debut children's book. What's it like now being an author?
It's fabulous. I mean, this story started at the Writer's Loft when I was coming regularly. My first critique group was here at the Writer's Loft, when I was in Sherborne, and I just kept working on it a lot and talking to a lot of people. I got to meet a lot of people, and I think it's not so much about the book. It's really is about the journey, and I'm very fortunate to finally have a book come out, but a lot of people don't. But you have to keep thinking about like what are you getting along the way. Say you don't have a book come out, you're making all these friendships, you're making all the connections, you're learning a ton. I mean, ultimately, yes, you want to have that book come out, and I also think it's about similar to like sports. You want to win the championship, but at the end of the day, only one team wins that championship. So what else do you have? And I think I keep thinking about that and reflecting. It's like, what else do I have on this journey? Meeting all these great people. Heather, Kelly, who started the Writers Loft, was amazing and sets up this whole bazaar, and all these people. I've known Kelly since I started here, and it's been awesome just meeting all these great people, and now I get to meet you.
There you go. Hey, is there a website where we can go to find out more about Missy Wants a Mammoth?
Yes, PamVaughnAuthor.com.
Pam, thank you for being on the show and for talking smack.
Of course, thank you so much.
We're here with Kelly Carey. She's the author of How Long Is Forever. And we're here at the Writers Loft. Hey, Kelly, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. I'm having a great day here. I just found out about this event a few days ago. Still learning about what the Writers Loft is all about. Came down here with my beautiful wife, and I'm meeting so many great people.
Oh, the Writers Loft is a magical place. But for the Writers Loft, this book would not exist.
So tell me, before we get into the book, tell me a little bit about the Writers Loft. This is a place where writers can come and write and meet and brainstorm?
Yeah, it's kind of a safe space where you first decide, hey, I'm going to try this writing endeavor. So you come and you get together. You can just sit and write quietly with other authors, and they offer different programs. They bring in editors. They bring in other writers to talk to you about how they got started in their journey. It's just been a fabulous community.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad, because writing can be such a solitary thing, and I've done educational magic shows for 35 years. When I go out and I have an idea, I can get a response like that. If I tell a joke, I know immediately, did it hit or did it not hit?
Yeah.
And sometimes when it doesn't hit, that's fun. It really is like you're just dying up there, and it's like. But for a writer, it can take, and we've been amazed that it can take years.
Oh yeah.
From not only from the time you start writing a book, but just from the time a publisher buys your manuscript, it can be 2 or 3 years.
Well, it can be that long from the time you do your first draft. And what you really need, just like you were saying with the jokes, you need to see how people are going to react to it. And the Writers Loft, the nice thing about this is we've got critique groups that run every month. So you can send in your first draft, and you're talking to other folks that are on the same point, and we'll give feedback on each other's work, and it's a nice environment to do it. We're all learning from each other. It's been great.
So that first time you sent in your draft, did it take you a few months to actually send it in because you're like, oh, they're going to think it's terrible?
Well, that's true when I'm getting ready to send it to an editor. Like, you're really nervous because that's a one shot. You get one shot, and if they say no, you're done. But sending it to the other folks here that are other authors, and I know that they're kind of struggling the same way I am, and we all recognize that you're really putting yourself out there when you're sharing your work with someone. So it's a little bit easier to do it here. And we all recognize it's a draft. It's supposed to get feedback. It's going to get better. You're going to revise it. So that feels a little bit easier.
Yeah. I've heard some authors and some especially comedians say that the first draft of anything is supposed to be not great.
Dog vomit.
Well, yes, I was searching for another. I didn't want to use the word that I heard.
A dog vomit after the dog's eaten a whole box of Crayola crayons. You know that kind.
Oh, I do. Yeah. I've seen after Fruit Loops. Yes, so.
I tell kids when I go into schools, they love that. When I put up a big picture of a dog vomiting, and I tell them that's what their first drafts are, because sometimes I think you self-edit before you even get the pen on the paper,
exactly.
Or start typing the first word. It's the worst thing you can do.
Yep.
You just have to let it go.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
So tell us How Long Is Forever. Tell us all about this book. A neat title.
Thank Thank you. So, How Long is Forever is a story about a little boy who's complaining that something is taking forever. And when he complains, his grandfather says he doesn't even know the meaning of forever. And it sends the character out on a quest through the farm to prove that he actually knows how long forever is. And it's really a sweet story about that forever love that grandparents feel for their grandchildren and what's really important in life.
You know, I was blessed growing up. I didn't appreciate it being a blessing at the time. Everybody on both sides of my family lived within a square mile. So I would oftentimes, if I was doing something wrong, I would oftentimes have adults come up and smack me in the back of the head. I'm going, you can't hit me. I'm your uncle. I'm like, what do you mean you're my uncle? I've never met you before. And sure enough, it was my uncle. But I was really close with especially my paternal grandmother. My grandfather too, but my grandmother became really one of my best friends. And I think that, especially these days, because we're all on the move and we're spread out, I don't think as many kids have that opportunity to have that intergenerational friendship.
Yeah, I was, like you, very close to my grandparents, and we did live really close together. My grandparents lived at the bottom of my street, which was great. When I got really in trouble, I could run away to my grandparents' house, and there was always cookies in the cookie jar, no matter how much trouble I was in. So I totally appreciate that. But I do think that when those visits come, my other grandparents lived farther away, so those were really special visits when they would come and see me, and we had to super clean the house because they were coming, and it was a big deal. And then sitting down and being able to share a book like this with them would have been kind of really a cool thing to do and talk about how much we care about each other. So, yeah, I think those intergenerational relationships are really important. And the grandparent relationship, I think, kind of all the angst that you can have with a parent kind of dissolves away when it's your grandparent, but all that love is still there. So it's really nice. Yeah.
One of the things, I've done a lot of traveling through Latin America, and that's one of the things I see. Unlike here in the States where everything is kind of... They do, and they go to concerts together. They go out to celebrations, and it's thankfully something we're able to do with our kids, but I don't see enough families doing it. I see, families of young kids doing things together, and families of, the middle grade kids are off doing together, and the parents are talking about it as they're watching them on the sports teams. And then teenagers are doing their own thing. I just wish there were more opportunities for families here in the States to just get together and go to a concert, go to an event together, and spend time with each other.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that grandparent relationship is important. So, and I think it's on us. I think it's on the parents. We did Thanksgiving at one family's house in Connecticut, and we came home, and on Saturday we did the other family. We got the grandparents there, and my kids are not kids anymore. They think they're adults. They're all in their 20s. We made sure they were all there with my 90-year-old father-in-law, and those times are important.
Yes, very, very important.
To sit down around the table and I'll chat, and he's telling stories that none of us had heard before, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any of those stories kind of surprise you and say, Grandpa, really?
Well, my kids always say my brother is famous around the Thanksgiving table of telling stories when we were younger, and my mother is always shocked at the shenanigans that my brother got up to that she had no idea of at the time. So those are kind of the fun stories that come out. We figure, you've kind of gotten past the point where you're going to get in trouble for the thing you did when you were 12, when you're 42. Yeah, but they're pretty funny. Yeah,
awesome. Hey, is there a website we can go to find out more about How Long is Forever?
Yeah, you can go to Carey Writes, so it's KCAREW Writes.com, and then the book is published by Charles Bridge. So if you go onto Charles Bridge's website, you can find teacher guides and worksheets that you can do in your classroom.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on Reading with Your Kids.
It was a pleasure.
I'm here at the Writers Loft in Hudson, Massachusetts, having a great time, and I'm with Dana Laquadera. Hey, Dana, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for talking with me.
Happy to talk to you. Dana is the author of The Uncluttered Mother. This is what a neat title for a book. Tell us a little bit about it.
So I wrote this book in a series of essays as my children, my 3 daughters, were growing up. And a few of the essays were previously published in various outlets. And by the time my children were all grown, I realized I wanted to put it together into a book to inspire and encourage other moms raising children, or moms of all ages, to simplify their space, their environment, their calendars in order to enjoy parenting more and have more creativity in their life and more peace.
I like that. This reminds me of the series, I think it was on Netflix, the Japanese woman wanted you to, does this spark joy? Is this kind of the idea that you're talking about?
It certainly relates to that, and I know the series you're talking about. Yes, but I think that in my book I encourage mothers to simplify in ways that are meaningful to them. So, one mother might have a collection of something that takes up a lot of room, but it's very near and dear to her. And my thought is, keep what is really important to you, but prune your life, prune your belongings, your calendar, and get rid of the things that really don't have meaning to you and don't add to your life or to your joy.
Now, are these lessons that you basically learned over the years, or did you just jump into parenting knowing all this?
I learned it over the years, and one important thing I learned is be careful what you bring into your home for your children, because if it goes missing because you've decided to clear it out, they will notice. Every little thing, they notice if it's missing. So think about it before you bring it into your home.
Yeah, especially pets.
Oh my goodness, definitely pets. Yeah. We only had one. But
So this is great. So how does it? How is the book being received by folks?
People who have read it have told me they're very inspired, and it sort of sets them on a trajectory of starting with clearing their environment, cleaning their house, bagging up old clothing, getting rid of knickknacks and things like that, and then they say it spills into other areas, like not doing the activities that they don't love, and just revisiting how much do they really want to keep doing, and how much, and making room for other things, making room for more creativity. And
awesome, great. Is there a website folks can go to find out a little bit more about the book?
Yes, the website is my full name, DanaLaquadera.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on Reading with Your Kids. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. In the meantime, please connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @readingwithyourkids on Instagram, and @JedleyMagic on X. I want to thank all the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guests, Helen Kampion, Howard Woolke, Kelly Carey, Ellen Cohen, Jaya Mehta, Janet Costa Bates, Susan Lubner, Nancy Tupper-Ling, Andrew Hackett, Pam Vaughn, Dana Laquadera. I want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for joining me at the Writer's Loft, and also for all the support she gives me. But most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and all throughout 2024. And we hope you will join us again in 2025. And most of all, thank you so very much for making the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.